Happy Wednesday to you. Happy National Signing Day to you. Hope you're having a great day. It was a good day in Notre Dame land. I see Jesse is going to be experimenting with his facial light as we get the show started. He is in dark mode right now. How are you today?
It's been a long day, but I'm actually feeling a lot better than I did like
Okay,
3 or
good.
4 hours ago. So
Excellent. Excellent. It is Mailbag Day, so get your questions in. Even though it is signing day, it is also Mailbag Day here on the show. And as Tristan says, it was drama free. It was remarkably drama free, and that's kind of, I don't know about you, Jess, and how closely I know like you were doing your day job and all that kind of stuff, and how closely you pay attention to it during the day and stuff like that. But like what I kind of do is, I sit here and I'm kind of like waiting. Okay, are they going to have any decommits? Is there going to be any last minute drama? But all 23 of the high school guys signed, all 6 of the incoming transfers signed. So it was a good day. It was a really good day.
there was none of what was that guy's name that flipped after last year? There were a couple guys that flipped on signing day, and that's the only thing I was looking for, guys who were
Oh,
flipping.
like well, all the drama was right before signing day, really.
Right.
Right. Like the Bowen stuff and all that, different kind of stuff. I mean, that's where it was. Tommy, I see your question. I've got it starred up and I will use it. So we'll be doing that here in a little bit because Tommy, always says we don't use his questions. Get more questions in. Since Tommy thought yesterday was mailbag day, get him in today. Did you see the video, the Fighting Irish media video that Marcus Freeman and the coaching staff put out? Nicely done, finally produced, all that kind of stuff. It was Mission Impossible-esque, like they're searching the vaults and bringing out the 24 karat gold with the signing class and all that stuff. Did you have a chance to see that?
I did. I thought it was really well done, and I thought it was funny too because I was like, when did they shoot this? Because there was no Jared Parker in there, right? And so I was like,
I was noticing that. Like, did they shoot it yesterday?
that's what I mean. I was like, or did they know the whole time that Jared Parker potentially was going to be leaving?
Or
Like,
did they just have to reshoot the office scene?
right, right. And so that's what I was thinking about. I was like, they all the coaches you saw were the coaches that were still there, and I was like, this had to be, they either one knew or two had to reshoot after some of the people left. But I love the concept of it, finding these vaults, the 24 karat gold for the class of 24. I thought it was really well done. And Marcus Freeman's a good little actor, got a good voiceover going.
I thought they all did pretty well, because a few of them had speaking lines and stuff like that. They sounded fairly natural. They didn't sound like they were acting or anything. Obviously, we can't play it. We get in trouble if we play the video and stuff like that. But it was pretty cool. They obviously had the players, like they'd been planning this for a long time because,
Right.
The players can't all just show up to, from around the country to do their little part in the vault, grabbing their blocks of gold and all that different stuff. So, they've been planning it out with them, and they did a good job. Fighting Irish Media cranking out really good videos right and left, I think.
One of my friends texted me actually and was like, "This is the best thing Notre Dame's ever done." And he doesn't speak kindly about Notre Dame, so
I'm sure you don't have a whole lot of friends who are Notre Dame fans, really. So DK said he thought Mike Denbrock, or he thought it was weird that Mike Denbrock was in it. That would have actually been, it's like I was looking at the heads, again, like to see if they had to edit around, different guys, maybe someone who was in it, who's not now, that kind of stuff. But the class itself, the blue chip ratio, and this is what I've started looking at now every year, the percentage of signees in a class who are either 4 or 5 star guys. Marcus Freeman's first 2 classes, 82%. 19 of 23 players, 4 or 5 starts, what he led the press conference off with today. Brian Kelly's last Notre Dame class in 2021, heavily Marcus Freeman influenced it. It came in at 81%. So these last 3 are clipping up there in the 80s now. Kelly's recruiting classes only topped 60% 3 different times. His best was 82% in 2013. That's the class that had Jalen Smith, Will Fuller, Durham Smythe, Mike McGlinchey, Isaac Rochelle, Malik Zaire, and others. I mean, you talk about a heavyweight class, the 2013 class. But last year's class, 81%, or the 2021 class, rather, 81%. That had Marcus Freeman heavily involved. And the 2019 class was 77%. That had Kyle Hamilton, Kyron Williams, Isaiah Foskey, and some others. But otherwise, here's what Brian Kelly's classes were: 40%, 52%, 40%, 47, 47, 56, 59, 50, 56. So Kelly's average blue chip ratio was 59% during his tenure, and that includes, the good classes. Freeman's 2022 class and his other 2 classes, all those figured in. Freeman 82% for 2 years. Then you factor in the portal guys as well, and like that doesn't factor into the blue chip, but at the same time, like when you can hit 80% and you're bringing in key transfer portal guys, it's a really good signing day. Really good signing day.
Yeah, really good signing day. And you actually sent me a little graph earlier. I was surprised you sent me that graph. Do you know what was going on in there? Do you?
Someone tweeted this, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but I thought it was
nice. Here we go.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at this is a really, really good draft. Like the best place to be is, can you see my mouse, by the way? Like can you see it scrolling around right now?
Just a little bit, just faintly.
Yeah. So like this upper right quadrant, if you were on the XYZ axis,
where the red lines are.
Yeah. So like you would ideally you'd want to be in the very far right and then as far north as you can go. And so 2013 is the best one based off of this chart, but you can see Marcus Freeman in this band in the 2022, 2023, and 2024. And like you were saying, that 2013 class was just an outlier compared to all the other, Brian Kelly signing days, dating back to 2010. And so, basically you want your recruiting class score to go to the right, and then you want average player rating to go up. And so Marcus Freeman is in the sweet zone on all of his recruiting classes so far.
Yeah, exactly. And I won't lie, I saw this graph, and that's what made me go, let's go back and revisit the blue chip ratio thing. And that's where I, started going through the numbers and digging through and putting together the, all that blue chip stuff. And yeah, like it's pretty amazing when you look at where recruiting is right now, and doing pretty well. It's all going pretty well. Well, let's you want to hit some mailbag questions? Get your mailbag questions in. We were answering them. And Sion, appreciate you. He says we're always at the bar that he likes to visit every afternoon, evening. So weird. That's the bar that Jesse is hanging out at.
Whoa.
Night and day. What's that?
Can't be letting out my secrets.
Oh, okay. So here's let's start with some there's one that I'm saving. We're gonna save for rapid fire this Lloyd Christmas comment about Gino. We will save that. Lloyd also wants to know, were the gold bars real? I'm thinking they had chocolate in the middle, like big, huge chunks of chocolate wrapped in gold. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it was real gold. It would have been cool, but yeah, they were probably just like plastic, or like you said, maybe chocolate.
Milton is going deep, man. I don't know about this, like our expertise on this. He wants us to rank each position group from 23-24, i.e., he says quarterback 1A is 2024 class, 1B is 23-20 wide receiver. Man, that's what are you doing there, by the way? Jesse's got all kinds of stuff going on. I think that's probably a little bit too deep for a like Ryan/Brian might be able to. Oh, sorry, it is Kian. It is a hard C. Kian, not CN. All right. Um, that's a little bit too deep, I think, for our recruiting expertise. Ryan, I know could probably rank that off the top of his head. A little bit too much for us. T.S. Smith, 0323. How do we feel about Raiola going to Nebraska? We touched a little bit on that yesterday. The fact that he decided to bolt Georgia and go to Nebraska. I mean, it's a huge get for Nebraska. First of all, year 2 for Matt Rule, and Nebraska has fallen into that Texas category. Like, is Nebraska back? And they have never they have not been close to being back, but they're trying to get back to any semblance of where they were in the late 90s and even into the early 2000s before things really started falling off, in the post Tom Osborne era. But it's huge for Matt Rule and for Nebraska to get a guy like that. And like I said, we were talking about this in rapid fire yesterday. With that commitment of Raiola to Nebraska, the top 10 recruits in this class are at 10 different schools. They're not clustered into, even 6 or 7 schools where you've got multiples. If Raiola had gone to Georgia, there would have been multiple guys that in the top 10 committed to Georgia, but they're spread out. The top 10 recruits at 10 different schools. And I think that NIL is playing an impact in that. And I think it is going to be like when you talk about maybe wanting a little bit more parity and not just 1 or 2 schools dominating everything, I think that that's going to be good in the long run. What do you think, Jess?
Yeah, I think that when like you said, all 10 of the top recruits are going to different schools, that's a common trend across, recruits 20 through 100 as well. And it just makes it, the portal NIL has equaled out some of the playing field some. And I was actually talking about this today with my boss a little bit. It's nice that, but also there's disadvantages at the same time, right? Because you don't want to just straight be buying players, but that's ultimately what it's going to be. But it's nice to see, the Alabamas, the Georgias, not just stockpiling up all these guys, and the opportunity with some of these schools to, have equal opportunity. And I think with the expanded playoff, that's also going to be highlighted because you're going to get more teams in. And then once you're in, it could end up being, almost a free for all, right? Like, we don't know what's going to happen in these first couple of years. Are the 1 through 4 seeds just going to dominate, or are you going to see some of these, 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds do well as well? And so I think there would be more parity now than there were 5 years ago. So
For sure.
Good to see.
For sure. I think that'll and I think the other thing, I think that the expanded playoff is going to help that as well, because now you're not just going to have really, what is it, maybe like 8 schools total, basically cycling through a 4-team college football playoff field, expanding it out to 12, where you're going to have more schools in. Really sucks for the Pac-12 because they, imploded at the wrong time. They're going away. I think that this could have been a real boon for the Pac-12 if they'd been able to stay in place. The fact that they were going to get some, more teams into the playoff, and they obviously have Washington going in this year, and they just missed getting Oregon in. They would have had 2 teams in the playoff if it were 12 teams this year, and obviously Florida State would have been in as well. But I think between the two, between the expanded playoff and NIL, I think that it's going to help, and you're going to see recruits going to some different places. And again, I think it continues to help Notre Dame as well. Yeah, Joe says that it is annoying there in Nebraska hearing about the quote. I'm sure that's all they're talking about in Nebraska is getting Raiola out there. Mark says he got a kick that ESPN has a bowl opt-out tracker. Thoughts on that? I haven't seen the bowl opt-out tracker. Have you?
No, I have not seen the bowl opt-out tracker, but I need to go look at this now. And it's to me, it's funny that ESPN has something kind of, advertising it at the end of the day.
How do you even,
whose job is that too?
I know. I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to flip on ESPN after I'm done. Is like, are they doing it during the bowl games, or are they doing it all the time, like it just at different parts of the day. By the way, here's who's opting out of the polls. I mean, there are so many guys opting out. That's a lot of names to keep track of. A lot of names.
A lot of names.
Yeah, so I'll have to check that out. The bowl opt out tracker. Speaking of which, in rapid fire, we got some news on we've got some interesting comments coming up from Marcus Freeman in rapid fire. Let's put it that way. We've got both comments from him and some interesting tidbit or two on Riley Leonard, I thought. Tommy wants to know if we could take two guys from each position group to form the ultimate Notre Dame player at each position, who would they be and which parts of the players are utilized?
Oh, wow. If you could take two guys from each position group to form the ultimate Notre Dame player at each position, who would they be and which parts of their players of the players? I feel like that's a long question, right? Because you could go through like every position, wide receiver, offensive line, quarterback, defensive line, safety, linebacker, running back. This is a loaded question.
It is.
I take, I'll just do an example.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what my Frankenstein would look like.
I'd use Jeremiah Love for something.
Okay.
And I think it would be I would use his feet and shit like shiftiness, just that kind of, quick twitch type running. And then who would I pair him with also in that position? I think I'd pair him with Jadarian Price, and I'd use Jadarian Price's strength a little bit more because he's a little bit kind of bulkier, right? And so I think I would combine a little bit of Jeremiah Love's finesse and Jadarian Price's power.
See, I'd kind of pair him up. I think like with Jabron Payne, and like Payne's, low center of gravity, and he's got pretty strong legs, like especially for his size. And like I think if you paired Jeremiah Love's skill set with like that lower half that Jabron Payne has, you're not quite in the like the Barry Sanders like massive, quad god, type area. But I think that that would be a pretty darn good running back. Like if you paired those skill sets,
Yes,
right there. Now, like if I took like at wide receiver,
well, that would be fun. I'd go Faison Speed with Colsey's body.
see, I was thinking Jaden Thomas, but yeah, like with Faison Speed, basically,
Mm-hmm.
but the same thing, like both bigger receiver with a smaller guy's speed and kind of shiftiness and stuff like that.
Yes.
Faison really, once again stood out in practice yesterday. KK Smith, I was pretty impressed with what little we got to see of him as well. The freshman, I think he's going to be somebody that's fun to watch and kind of keep an eye on here, like when we get into spring camp and into summer, like into fall camp and all that kind of stuff. All right, interesting question there, Tommy. And Tommy's got another one.
Oh, wow.
If you could bring a TV football movie coach to be offensive coordinator, who would it be from what show or movie?
I two come to mind. I would go Eric Taylor off of Friday Night Lights. And then I would maybe do like Herman Boone from Remember the Titans, I think would be my top two.
I like that. I was thinking Friday Night Lights as well. He was like the first one that came to mind. Eric Taylor, offensive minded coach and all that kind of stuff, and knew his stuff. And I would probably sort of combine him, like even though he was the defensive coordinator, like the defensive coordinator from Remember the Titans. Remember him? Like you blitz all night and you make him remember the night they played the Titans and all that stuff. That's I think that's the direction that I would go. So like Eric Taylor with like kind of a little, was that Yost? Was that his name? A little bit of that saltiness in him, a little bit more spite. Oh,
ooh,
super chat.
I like that question.
The super chat?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So there it is. Queued it up for you. Your Notre Dame Mount Rushmore. And thanks for the super chat, Tyler.
So I'm gonna go off of experience. So no one before '96 is gonna make my list, and probably no one before like 2004 is gonna make my list. I'd go Michael Floyd, Zach Martin, Brady Quinn, and Manti Te'o or Jalen Smith.
Yeah, Jason went Manti. So what was your time range again? Because I think when we've done this, I think we did some over the summer, and Vince pretty much kept it like within the last 20 years because that's all he can remember, basically. And obviously,
that's where I'm at too, basically.
okay. So if I'm gonna do that, because I mean there are too many, because like most of the Heismans were won like pre 1970,
Right.
So like it's a little bit when you're looking at old grainy gray black and white, film and stuff like that, to really know like who exactly it needs to be. But I think we can stipulate to Newt Rockne, right? So like Newt would be my pre 1970 guy. I would take him just a little bit over Paul Hornig, even though Hornig, was versatile and then went to the NFL, played a different, moved from quarterback to running back and all that stuff. He played a lot of different positions at Notre Dame. And, the last Heisman Trophy winner to play for a losing team, by the way. So I would go Newt Rockne first. I would go Manti Te'o second, because now I'm going to keep it like a little bit more recent. I'm going to go Brady Quinn because we've got to have a quarterback in there. And I think we can all agree that he's really the best quarterback since Tony Wright. Well, I guess we don't all have to agree on that. I mean, you can make a case for Jimmy Clausen, basically. But when you look at everything that he did, both from a wins and stat standpoint, I think Brady Quinn stacks up.
He's just a more likable guy than Jimmy Clausen as well.
Well, there is that.
Just being honest.
Yeah. And I know that you like Zach Martin more, but for his time at Notre Dame, Quentin Nelson, I think,
more dominant,
a little bit more dominant for his time at Notre Dame. So I got to give it to one offensive lineman. I'm going to go Quentin Nelson.
I was biased, clearly, but I knew that you would probably say that actually when I said Zach Martin.
I mean, that I like Zach Martin, and I would take Zach Martin.
No, 100%, but
over Quentin Nelson still.
Because but also, look, do you value a tackle more than you value a guard?
Right. And like Jalen Smith is tough, but look, for what Manti meant to that 2012 team,
I almost won the Heisman.
Yeah, I mean, he was a Heisman runner-up as a middle linebacker. When exactly do you see that? You don't see it very often. So I've got to go with Manti over Jalen, even though just pure athlete and everything. See, and like John, it's hard to disagree with what Joe Montana became. And I mean, he was still good when he was at Notre Dame, but to me, Montana became a much better quarterback once he got to the NFL and he was paired up with Bill Walsh than when he was here at Notre Dame. So like if I'm just looking at the Notre Dame career, that's why I put like Brady Quinn in over any of those other quarterbacks for what they actually did at Notre Dame.
Nice.
All right. Getting some more questions here. The questions are rolling. People are firing off the juices now. David wants to know if we think Carr starts in 25. Sure sounds like people are fawning over him already. What do you think?
Excuse me. I think he has the highest ceiling of anyone in 25. And if Notre Dame is really committed to this, we're only going to the only going to the portal for quarterback because we absolutely need to. We're going to start developing, the Carrs, the Deuce Knights, the Menchies of the world. Then of that group, I would have to say Carr, but I actually think I'm more excited for Deuce Knight, to be honest with you. I want to see what he's all about. Yeah.
But do you think Deuce is going to start as a freshman in 25?
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think Carr would get the start in 25, and then there could be a little competition in 26 between Deuce and Carr.
I do think that he, like, as of right now, I will say yes. And just in the one in-person glimpse that we got, he did some impressive things. But like I am just always like so like the more hype they have coming in, the more it makes me want to pull back and go, okay, let's be cautious with this because you don't want to heap too much on him, right? Like
Right.
I'd like to see him throw some competitive balls and like throw some passes with defenders out there, and we'll get to see some of that in the spring. That's kind of what I'm looking for when we get to see a little bit more of CJ Carr in the spring. My inkling right now is based on the way this room stacks up, he probably does start, but I still I'm treading a little bit more lightly, I think, than some people on CJ. Again, not anything against him and anything like that, but it's just like there is so much on this guy right now that it makes me, kind of want to pull the rope back the other way. Carberry Q says, what do you guys think about the guys talking about Angeli dropping dimes? Or is it what you would expect them to say? I hadn't seen people say he was dropping dimes.
Listen, no one's just going to, I don't think you're going to, like, you're not going to trash a guy, but you're also, there's no need for you to like potentially exaggerate if that's not the truth at the same time. Like, I'm sure he's dropping some nice, balls in the bucket in practice, but again, it's practice. And so we've seen him in limited game speed, usually against backups. I want to see, from the start, knowing that he's the starter, all of the responsibility of the game falls on his shoulders. Again, it's easy to come out and have that confidence when you're in a blowout and just start slinging the ball around a little bit, right? Like from start to finish, I need to see him go out and lead the offense to grab a lead and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the whole dropping dimes, and again, that's not how I would characterize it. I thought, it was the start of practice and they were throwing some passes. The majority of the passes they were throwing were receivers against air.
Right.
And against air means what? No defender there to defend him. Now,
even at the beginning of practice, when you kind of drop those, not trick shots, but like you're more experimental, right? Like there's
right. I mean, he threw some nice balls, dropping dimes. I don't know, like there was some one-on-one stuff in the end zone. He hit a couple nice passes. That was none of the quarterbacks threw really bad balls in the one-on-one stuff, and really in anything that we saw yesterday. So dropping dimes, I think it's a little bit, maybe kind of out there. They all threw nice, but I'm not going to get carried away with again, with anything that we saw of those guys in the 15 or 20 minutes or whatever it was that we were out there at practice yesterday. Joe Allen says he's taking his son to his first Notre Dame game in South Bend next season, leaving the high-priced games out. Which should I pick? Which game you picking?
Let me quickly scramble to find the schedule because I don't know it off the top of my head. So, they don't even have it posted. Here we go. Come on. 2024. Here we go. You got Texas A&M. That's on the road. You got NIU, Northern Illinois at home. You got Miami of Ohio at home. You got Louisville at home, Stanford at home, Florida State at home, and Virginia at home. I bet Florida State will be the most popular. I would stay away from Northern Illinois. And so to me, that's Miami of Ohio, Louisville, Stanford, and Virginia. Honestly, I think I'd go with the Louisville game. I think that's the biggest bang for its buck potentially of seeing a quality game, but not having to pay, crazy prices.
Yeah, I mean, what are you looking for? Because there's a chance that that Virginia game, I believe, is going to be senior day for Notre Dame.
Yes.
So that's going to be mid-November. So there's always a chance you'll get decent weather. But like last year, it was snowing. Remember that the little snow swarm that kind of came in the middle, in the second
Like the
half of the Boston College game.
Yeah.
And there's been other snow games before. So if you want to experience, some nice South Bend cold weather, then come for that. Otherwise, if you just want to win, you come for either the NIU or the Miami, Ohio games. Besides that, I would pick Louisville for what could be a potentially competitive game, and I think will be in October. Do they have the dates listed there? I think that one's going to be October.
Which game was it?
Louisville.
September 28th. So
it's not okay. Early or late September, rather.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they go on like the only game that they have in October at home is Stanford. It's October 12th. And then the rest, they're on the road.
That's right. Stanford. There's Stanford as well. Stanford, the October game. I might just do Stanford because middle of October, the leaves are going to be turning. You can guarantee, you're going to see some fall. And that to me is the best time here around South Bend is when the leaves are turning and you've got all the different colors and stuff like that. So I might switch to Stanford just for the complete overall Notre Dame experience because of what you're going to get from everything else that comes around it in mid-October. So that's my answer.
Yeah, it's that sweet time. Not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah, for sure. Put a sweatshirt on, all that kind of good stuff. All right, we're going to get a few more. Jesse's got to be out of here a little bit earlier than usual tonight, so we're going to get a few more.
Just 7:15, nothing crazy.
Lloyd wants to know, anyone else we're looking at, or are we done for 2024? In terms of the incoming freshmen, they're done. I think that they're still shopping in the transfer portal right now. And I think that that'll kind of pick up really quickly once some bowl games start getting done. You might still see something else. And if it doesn't happen, before this portal closes in early January, then remember you still got the spring portal. So I think that's it. I think, maybe a little portal shopping, but that's it.
That's what I would say. It seems like, and the thing that I think I've enjoyed the most about this process is Notre Dame has felt very pointed. It seems like they are going after their people and they are getting their people, and they're not wasting or distracting their time kind of, elsewhere. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
It feels like they've had this plan of attack and they're just executing it and executing it and executing it.
Right. I agree. Like that, it's been very, very strategic, and they've just kind of gone about their business. It's like a well-planned draft. They've got their guys. They got these guys committed. They stayed committed, and again, it was very drama-free in terms of today, and they knew exactly what they were looking for and went out and got it in the transfer portal as well. So, from both a pure high school recruiting standpoint and with the transfer portal guys, they had a very good plan, very well scouted by their staff and their personnel and all that kind of stuff, and they executed it very well. David, who's your favorite Notre Dame player to play for the Cowboys, and which current Notre Dame player would you like the Cowboys to get? These are both very easy for me. I'll let you go.
No, you go first if it's so easy.
Well, for me, the current player, my favorite player to play for the Cowboys is Zach Martin. I love watching Zach Martin, and he's just a technician. He is very sound. He's unfortunately been hampered by some injuries in recent years, and I am concerned that as good as he has been, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm concerned that as good as he has been, that they're wasting Zach Martin's best years on these teams that underachieve all the time. But I hope that they're able to, kind of solve that here pretty soon. In terms of which current player I would like the Cowboys to get, we've talked about it before. It's Audric Estime.
Yeah.
To me, like you pair Audric Estime
brutal.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You pair Estime up with Tony Pollard in that backfield and Dak Prescott. And then
so Estime would be basically what you would have gotten out of a fresh or young Ezekiel Elliott when him and Pollard were together. He's like a revamped Ezekiel Elliott when he first started his career. So I'd have to go with Audric Estime as well. I mean, I can't say I like Joe Alt too, just because you can't pass up good tackles. Tyron Smith is playing, but he's another guy who's always banged up. I don't even think he practices during the week, to be honest with you. I think he just shows up and plays games at this point. So I don't think it's never a bad thing to have never a bad thing to have too many tackles. If I were looking at the defensive side of the ball, they need a linebacker, but I don't think. Well, you know what? I think Maris Leofau would be a really good option in their defense. Yeah, just because Dan Quinn likes to run a lot of man coverage, and Maris, I think he could be used well to rush the passer and also cover guys maybe coming out of the backfield as like an outside linebacker.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think Maris Leofau isn't being brought in to be, stop the run game. I don't think that's going to be his game in the NFL. He's going to be a pass rusher. And again, he's going to be a guy who can potentially cover guys out of the backfield. I know he's not coming out, but Howard Cross at defensive tackle would be very helpful. I think he's better than Mozzie Smith. I think Mozzie Smith has been a bum all season, if we're being honest.
Completely agree.
And then my favorite, past or player that is on the Cowboys that came from Notre Dame, I would say Zach Martin would be up there. And also my man, Julius Jones, I enjoyed as well.
I like Julius Jones too. His career ended a little bit too soon, unfortunately. And
that was the thing. He just wasn't there long enough.
Yeah. And what kind of hurt him ultimately is he and Marion Barber were splitting the reps. And like whenever Barber had the ball, like he was just like he ran with just such ferocity.
Yeah.
And Julius, didn't have that. So like when you compared them, it's like, oh man, why doesn't Marion Barber get more reps and all that kind of stuff? Julius was a little bit more of a glider, obviously. But once Barber did end up in that role full time, he wasn't quite the same running back when he didn't have another guy to kind of split those reps with. But I like Julius. Julius would be my number 2. There haven't been a ton of Cowboys or a ton of former Notre Dame guys who have played with the Cowboys, unfortunately. Obviously, Jalen Smith did. And if Jalen Smith could have bottled up that one season, what would that have been? His third season, second full season, third season overall, because the first season
one that got him a bunch of money and then nothing happened.
Yeah. Hey, we got asked the question, man. We got asked the question about what Notre Dame guys with the Cowboys. We're just answering the questions. It's mailbag night. Come on, you Cowboys haters. Tristan wants to know if Deuce Knight and CJ Carr win a national championship together.
I think I saw someone in the chat earlier bring this up. Listen, if Deuce Knight doesn't play his first year and is behind Carr, and then second year he's behind Carr again, I think that would be no more Deuce Knight at Notre Dame, especially with the the people wanting to play now. And I think it's going to come to a point where it's got to be either Carr or Deuce Knight.
By the way, this was combination Notre Dame Cowboys.
Man, TD for ND said later, taters.
Jason Carpenter found a way to mix it in there. Yeah, I tend to agree with what you're saying, which also kind of makes it seem like when you look at the timeline of CJ Carr and kind of the clock of CJ Carr and Deuce Knight, it's like CJ Carr needs to be starting by next year, because that'll be even though that'll be his first year playing, most likely, that'll be year 2 for him. And then year 3, if he, has the kind of year 3 that he would expect that he's going to have, and everyone expects that he have, then he would be off to the NFL by then. And then that would only be, Deuce Knight year 2. And you kind of, that quarterback development, you keep it rolling and all that kind of thing. So I think the odds of it happening are pretty slim, just because, look at where we are and look at the transfer portal and how many quarterbacks, even starting quarterbacks, went into the transfer portal this year. It's just so.
I mean, Kyle McCord went 11-1 and went to the portal. So
yeah. All right, Jess, you ready for rapid fire?
Let's do this thing.
All right, we've got a lot of Marcus Freeman stuff that we're going to get to in rapid fire. So for the people, grumbling and moaning and everything else about there's not enough Notre Dame talk, here it comes. We've got a lot of Notre Dame stuff coming up in rapid fire, because we've got some audio from the press conference today, including, there was a question about this in the chat that we haven't got a chance to get to yet, the offensive coordinator search. So here's Marcus Freeman from earlier today.
Don't have a timeline. I don't want to put a timeline into naming the right guy to lead our program, our offense. And we'll do a national search. We'll do a search. And it's a unique situation where our previous offense coordinator was the tight ends coach. I believe we have a quarterbacks coach that is second to none in my beliefs in Gino Guidugli. And so it's a unique situation where you're going to look at an offensive coordinator that has shown to maybe coach the tight ends, but also I'm going to consider Gino Guidugli continuing to be our offensive coordinator moving forward. And so I don't have a timeline. I want to make sure that we make the best decision for our offense and for our program moving forward.
Okay, so Gino Guidugli is going to be considered for the offensive coordinator position. I know this had to make some people's ears, just ring this afternoon. So what do you think, Jess?
What I think is Gino Guidugli, I think you have to you can't discount the internal hire, right? Because then what are you saying to your staff? And so I think it's a very diplomatic type of response. Listen, I think Notre Dame needs to go one direction and one direction only when looking for their offensive coordinator. They need to look and study which of the possible candidates have run a similar offense that would incorporate or integrate Riley Leonard as best as possible. Has Gino Guidugli ever run an offense that is kind of centered around, basically RPO-esque, right? The ability for the quarterback to be mobile and use his feet. I don't know, but I don't want to ask someone that's never done that before in year 3 and Marcus Freeman's kind of biggest year to kind of come up with an offense on the fly. And to me, that's why Denbrock is so is the top candidate, because of his ability of working with Jaden Daniels, a similar type of mobile quarterback. And we talked about it. When Jaden Daniels got to LSU, he was not a Heisman candidate. Mike Denbrock transformed him, molded him, worked with him, and that's what he's become. And so I want an offensive coordinator that has those similar tendencies and have ran an offense that looks similar to what Riley Leonard would be doing at Notre Dame.
Yeah, and number one Indy fan, good point. You don't make a hire for a player, you're right, but you have to make the hire for the kind of guy who can play to the strengths of the players.
Look at the rest of the quarterbacks. Carr, Minchie, and Deuce Knight are very similar, in my opinion, to Riley Leonard, guys who are able to be mobile on their feet, right? It's not just straight pro style drop back.
More so Knight than Carr, but yeah, Carr can still move.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that, and I saw somebody say this, I think that he has definitely given himself a fallback on Gino Guidugli. Jared Parker was last year's fallback. The problem is there's so much inexperience with Gino Guidugli, and you just went through this with an inexperienced offensive coordinator, and it was this roller coaster. I know that Gino Guidugli has a good football mind, or else Marcus Freeman wouldn't have hired him to begin with. And he's a good quarterbacks coach, but it comes back to the question, do you want another inexperienced coordinator when you still have an inexperienced head coach?
Right, when the expectations are ticking up for the head coach.
Yes, with everything is being held under a microscope now, because you had a 4-loss season and you've got a 3-loss season in your first 2 years. And because of the schedule that you've got, because of the defense that you have and the roster you were putting together, next year shapes up where this program has every reason to believe that it should be in the college football playoff next
That's what I mean.
year.
So let's look at devil's advocate of this one. How would all of us as fans feel if they go with another inexperienced offensive coordinator and they don't make the playoff next season? How would that, what kind of perception or tone would that send, considering we see all these great recruiting classes and everything else that, that we're stacking recruiting classes. We get another inexperienced offensive coordinator in year 3 and don't make the playoffs and waste another year of a transfer quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. There's time. I saw Sam said there's 8 months until next season, plenty of time to find someone. Well, you've actually got about 2 months. Really, you want it done in far less than a month, even, because you want whoever it is to be putting his offense together and start implementing that offense at least a month before spring practice starts. Unlike last season when Jared Parker took over and really had no time to put any true personal touches of his own on the offense after Tommy Rees left. So I do find it interesting, like the stuff with Mike Denbrock, who we talked about yesterday, like Gino Gaduli is a quarterback's coach. So let's just say he were to get promoted, then you've still got to go out and hire a tight ends coach at some point. Probably easier to hire a tight ends coach than an offensive coordinator, but Denbrock, also a tight ends coach currently at LSU. So he would fit the bill in a couple of different ways. He's got the experience, as you said, Jess, talking, with, working with different kinds of guys, running RPOs, doing all that different stuff. So personally, I feel like, again, Gino is a little bit more of a fallback at this point as they look at some of these other guys with a lot more experience and a lot more profile as well. Now, speaking of the skill set, question came up today about Riley Leonard, and this kind of ties into the offensive coordinator and the whole thing. The question was, did they go out and get Riley Leonard because of his specific skill set or despite his specific skill set? And here's the answer from the head coach.
He was the best quarterback that we believe was in the portal. And, to me, you get the best players first. And then you say, okay, how do we tailor what we do around those guys? And that is so important. And so we weren't looking for a pocket passer. We weren't looking for a dual threat guy. We're saying, okay, as we look to take another guy out of a quarterback to add to this program, who's the best one that fits this place? I've always said that, right? The best one that fits this place. And then how do we tailor what we do offensively around those guys? And so I think that's the situation more than anything with Riley.
What do you think about that, Jess?
Yeah, I like what he said because, he basically said we aren't targeting a specific type of quarterback. We just want the, best quarterback that's in the portal, and then we will kind of figure things out afterwards. And I just kind of looked up quickly on three's rankings of the top portal quarterbacks, and Dylan Gabriel is 1, Riley Leonard is 2, Will Howard is 3, Cam Ward is 4, Kyle McCord is 5, DJ I'm not even going to say it.
Uyangalele.
6, KJ Jefferson is 7, Dante Moore is 8. And so I didn't realize how highly regarded Riley Leonard was in that fashion. But, I think that Riley Leonard is going to pan out to a really good quarterback. It's just a matter of, the staying healthy part. And I think that's got to be the biggest concern. But I like Marcus Freeman's perspective of we're not necessarily looking for a specific type. We just want to gather all the best players that we can and then figure out something, how to piece that puzzle together once they're all here.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just saw, somebody make the comment about Riley Leonard. The quarterback of Duke shouldn't be better than the quarterback at Notre Dame. Well, if they would have gone out and gotten Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, just like if they would have gone, or out of high school, just like if they would have gone out and got Sam Hartman out of high school, you would have been complaining because they would have brought in 3-star guys. And it's, this is what Riley Leonard is now. He has turned into some, like quarterback development is a different story. And as we've talked about, that's where Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff, with the kind of guys that they have recruited, that's where they've got to take this off. We can,
Jason
Brian
Smith
Kelly is
brings
gone,
up-
so we don't have to get into the whole, development of quarterbacks argument. We know that it was spotty at best, but I do like the fact that he's talking about, there are a couple of different things with this. One, I do think that you need to, as you recruit, you do need to get guys who are more similar in their skill sets. Because again, going back to the way Brian Kelly recruited, you had an Ian Book, you had versus you had a Brandon Wimbush versus you had a Phil Jerkovic, and then you had a Drew Pine and you had a Tyler, so they had guys whose skill sets did not match up. So if you like if you went from Tyler Buckner to Drew Pine, you were obviously going to do different things with your offense. I would like to see more similar kind of quarterbacks, so you're not rearranging your entire offense.
Yeah.
Every time you go
Develop
from
a
one
system.
quarterback to the other. Yeah, that's exactly right. Similar for the most part to what Ohio State had been doing before Kyle McCord, who was obviously, falls out of what they had when they had been successful. But you know what I'm saying. So, but I do like the fact that he's talking about. Look, you get the best player, and you find things in his skill set that you can accentuate and play to. You play to their strengths.
I mean, listen, I get what you're saying, but a lot of people are, talking about consistency. It's like, Alabama went from Tua to Mac Jones. You know what I mean? Like they didn't.
True.
They went Jalen Hurts to Tua to Mac Jones, right? Like Mac Jones is the outlier of that group. So, I understand that you want some kind of consistency in that system, but at the same time, you kind of have to play with the, where the cards are dealt at in that given moment, right? You have to look at what guy you're going to be rolling with and what they do really well. Then there was another comment about, Notre Dame shouldn't be, like you were saying, going after, Duke's quarterbacks or whatever. To me, it's like some of these guys get into college and they're a lot more raw. And then Notre Dame, to me, is like the perfect situation because you don't do any work and then you get a nice gifted package with a bow on top of a developed quarterback that's ready to come in and play with a different level of, surrounding cast, essentially. And so it's almost like, what can we do? And then Notre Dame cuts out the middleman, right? Like they're just like, okay, yeah, we'll take this player or that player or this player and, acknowledge and be appreciative of all the work that's kind of gone in to get that player to that point.
Yeah, exactly. There were a couple other comments. Bernie was saying that going back to what we were talking about with offensive coordinator, defense is so loaded, any offensive coordinator will do. Now, were you saying that this year with Jared Parker? Would any offensive coordinator do this year, or is that just next year because Jared Parker is gone now? I think that maybe you're singing a little bit different tune now at this point. Marcus Freeman absolutely has to nail this offensive coordinator hire, which to me,
it's the biggest choice of his career so far.
Yes, that's right. Which to me, like as much as he might like Gino Guidugli and know that Gino Guidugli is a good coach, and again, I think he's a good coach as well, it would be a lot harder, I think, to hire an inexperienced offensive coordinator given everything that is riding on this hire going forward. Okay, so another comment from Marcus Freeman talking about CJ Carr. He was asked about CJ Carr's ceiling, and here's the answer.
It's high. I don't know how high it will be, but it's extremely high. I watch him throw the ball in practice these last couple of days, and he's got a great arm. His decision making, he processes information and makes decisions at a high level, but he's a freshman, right? He's got the one thing you can't take into consideration when you talk about hard work, you have a goal and we know it's going to be hard work, but you never know how much time is going to be put in, has to be put into to reach those goals. And so we'll see how much time it will take him, but I truly believe he has such a high ceiling in terms of where he'll be as a football player. And he's so competitive. That's the thing about CJ. He's smart, he's athletic, he's talented, but he's competitive. And those are things that are hard to measure. We get him around. He comes to some junior days and those things where he's around some of his teammates. He's one of the most competitive guys there is. And so that's what you want in a quarterback.
By the way, for everyone in the chat, we will be playing some of Micah Shrewsbury's comments here in just a minute as well. From his,
I was ready to say, I haven't seen any of this.
Oh, you haven't seen it or heard it yet? Oh, no. I can't wait for you to hear this. Then to CJ Carr talking about all this ceiling and upside, and does it make you nervous at all to hear all this so much on this guy up front? when he hasn't.
Yeah, it does,
you know,
because you don't want to set that bar up and then that player never reaches that bar.
I
I'm
know.
more on the boat of not like undervaluing or underappreciating what when talking about CJ Carr, but at the same time, I feel like this is what I think frustrates fans down the road is you hear all this great talk about, Tyler Buckner, you hear all this great talk about
Tobias Merriweather.
Merriweather,
look
and
at
then
that.
you get everything let down. Your feelings get let down, your
Right.
expectations get let down. And so again, I'm not saying you need to go up there and obviously you're not going to speak negatively about a player, but I think you can kind of have some reservations and be more general in your comments, because then it tends to be when that player doesn't perform, it's okay. What is the error? What is the fault? Why is it not working the way that we thought it was going to?
And that's what everybody's going to be asking. It just, like then people expect, why isn't this guy playing right away? And the first time Riley Leonard has an off game, get CJ Carr and, all these different things. There's so many different things that come with it. That it does make me just a little bit nervous. But I mean, they obviously, this is a big time recruit. And like between Leonard and CJ Carr, like these are the two biggest quarterback recruits that have been brought in here in a long time. Obviously, Leonard for where he is now. Again, like we were just talking about, compared to when he was coming out of high school. But like this is big time for Marcus Freeman. So it just makes me a little bit nervous to hear that much praise heaped on a guy who hasn't done anything yet. But the one thing I love hearing is about the competitiveness. Like that, you talk about common traits between Riley Leonard and CJ Carr, and hearing Marcus Freeman talk about it, the competitiveness. And I do think that goes a long way, because I think that when you look at traits of some of the most successful players, that competitiveness is right at the top. The fact that they are so competitive with so many different things.
Yes.
Fill in the blank. Marcus Freeman also said today that Leonard is staying at Duke through their bowl game, even though he won't be playing in their bowl game. So he's going to be with Duke at their bowl game, even though he has opted out and just signed today to come to Notre Dame.
I think that's, Sam Hartman did that last season. Obviously, he played in the bowl game, but
he didn't sign. He wasn't signed.
Right.
Like it wasn't even known exactly where he was going at that point.
Right. So it's a bit interesting. It's a little bit of, a head scratcher, but there's got to be something that he's doing to kind of get maybe, like when you get out of a bad relationship or a relationship ends bad, there's closure, right?
Uh-huh.
I think there's some sort of closure that Riley Leonard is seeking from his time at Duke. I mean, the guy was, a starter ever since he got there. And I just think that while, yes, he's coming to Notre Dame, we can't get caught up of that's where he started. That's where he developed. That's where he matured. And so, again, that closure is what Riley Leonard needs. I don't know what he needs it for or what specifically, but to me, that's what comes to mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty cool because like people have asked before, could you still play for your school in a bowl game, even if you were in the transfer portal? And you obviously can. And the fact that Riley Leonard is doing this, I do think that it's pretty cool. Like Irish Steel 63 said, it's okay. Those are his brothers, like these are the guys that he's been strapping on with.
Like he's been the leader. He's the quarterback, right?
Yeah,
like he's the
exactly.
It's not only his brothers, he's the guy leading them. He's the commander going into battle and war the last, 3 or 4 years.
And I mean, if the coaching staff has no problem with it, his teammates have no problem with it, there's no reason to have any problem with it. But again, it's very unusual based on where we are, because just look at Notre Dame. You don't see any of those guys sticking around, guys who entered the portal and who are going, right. Like they're all scattered. They're gone.
Yeah, it shows a good character, and I don't have any issue with it as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. So today is the early signing day, like the start of the early signing day period, December 20th. So we're 3 weeks into December now at this point. You got bowl games started. Consider everything else that's happened, coaching changes, transfer portal, all this different stuff. Does it make any sense to you to keep the early signing period in December? What would you do with it? Do you change it? Do you move it someplace else? What would you do?
No, I like it where it's at right now because it gives the opportunity for guys who want to enroll early to be there for spring practice, their first spring practice, or not spring practice, that spring semester before they roll into fall camp. You know what I mean? They basically get a camp before camp. And to me, that was like when I was playing, that was the hardest part is you get there at camp and you kind of have the deer and headlights look, right? You're trying to mesh with the team. You're on campus, you're trying to figure out the playbook, all of those things. And so when you have the early signing period where it's at, and you have guys who want to early enroll like CJ Carr, it just allows them to get grounded and settled in a little bit easier. So I like it for that reason.
John says the only signing period should be in February. I like having an early signing period, and I think coaches like it as well because of the fact that, like, there's 2 months that you don't have to worry about decommitments, basically. So I think they like getting it over with from that aspect. But there are just so many things going on all at once that I don't think that is necessarily a good thing. I've said before, I would like to see the early period come at the end of July, right before training camps start, right before the the high school football seasons get started and all that stuff. Do it in late July because most of your guys are committed at that point anyway. So why not? And then if you don't sign by then you have to wait until February. Or maybe you even move the signing period up instead of February. You just move it into mid-January. Do it right when the semester is getting started again and guys are coming back to class. I just think that putting it here when you've got coaching searches going on, like you get an unexpected guy, Jared Parker, who's going to become a head coach now. And now you've got to deal with that while you're also, out there in the transfer portal and you've got guys entering the portal and all that different stuff. I just think that there's too much stuff going on in the middle of December, but I do like having an early period. I just don't like it in the middle of December with everything else. Jess, do you buy or sell bowl games need to provide financial incentives for players to get them to not opt out?
Yeah, so
this goes along David Carpenter. I'll throw his idea in there as well. He says, what would you think of having a prize pool of money to pay players in bowl games? Those who win get paid more, but even losers would make money.
Yeah, so basically what this is saying is like an insurance policy for the players. Listen, I think that there should be incentive enough to play, and especially with NIL and how much you can, stack up now with the NIL. I think these guys should just want to play for the sake of wanting to play, to finish out, their career, to finish out whatever it might be. And to me, I just view that as an insurance policy. And I think the guys who are really, 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 your top maybe first round draft picks, and that's why they're not playing because they don't want to get injured. I still think that whatever money can be thrown at you is outweighed by, your bonus, your contract, the endorsements that start happening once you're a first round NFL player. So again, I just view this as an insurance policy, and I'm more on the boat of if you're getting all this NIL money already, the game itself is what should motivate you.
Yeah. Should you make the NIL agreements contingent upon you have to play in every game that you are healthy enough to play in, that kind of thing. And that includes bowl games. Like, that's a possibility. I just don't think, I do think, one, how is the Sun Bowl? Like, the Sun Bowl getting Notre Dame, they could probably come up with a lot more NIL opportunities than if it were Louisville playing Oregon State, for example, because you've got, just look at how excited all the Sun Bowl people were. Like, so they could potentially come up with, again, more NIL money there. But in general, I just don't see them being able to come up with enough cash. What is it going to be? Like 10, 20, 30, $40,000?
Well, then you start into a trend of everyone's going to want to do that and just be like, well, if I don't get paid, I'm not playing.
Right. So, so then you're inducing, the guys who are supposed to be the best players, but there's other guys on the roster who are potentially making nothing. So I don't think that they would be able to come up with enough money to make it all work out, honestly, to keep everybody happy in that situation. So it's a sell for me as well. Okay. So Notre Dame men's basketball.
This is what I've been waiting for, to be honest. I wanted to play
Yes.
it in the background because I saw it was a 5-minute clip, but I was like, I'm not going to get too distracted.
Well, it's not 5 minutes, but it's a couple.
No, like the
minutes worth.
full Citadel, like his full post-game press conference, I think was
okay.
like 5 minutes.
So this is edited down, and Bennett Weiss from WSB 22 here in town edited together some of Micah Shrewsbury's comments. This is not the video from that, but this is the audio from that. Micah Shrewsbury, after the 65-45 home loss by Notre Dame to the Citadel last night. You lost at home by 20 points, and you didn't lose by 20 points to Kentucky. You lost,
and
to
you
the
only
Citadel.
put up 45 points.
Yes. So here is Micah Shrewsbury.
I apologize to anybody that paid money to come watch that effort from that team. The one thing is they at least got to watch one team play hard. I thought Citadel played connected. I thought they played hard. I thought they played with a purpose. And I thought our team was poor in that area. That starts with me. Number one, it starts with me. And I got to find a way to get these guys ready to go. This game was over before we even got here. We have no energy at shoot around. We didn't have any energy at practice. That's who this team has been. But you have an opportunity, right? You try and learn from whatever the last game was. We're building a culture, and that ain't it. That is not the culture we're trying to build. So a message needs to be sent to some of these guys that, if you don't play hard, then you can sit and rot over there on the bench. And I'll find a way. I'll go and talk to the people in compliance. I will help you transfer. Because this culture is getting built the right way, and if you ain't a part of it, you're out. And I don't care.
So there you go. Notre Dame men's basketball coach, Micah Shrewsbury. First time you've heard it, Jess. So what did you think?
I loved it, to be honest with you, especially for a first-year head coach. I mean, he's not saying anything that's incorrect, right? And he even said it starts with me. So it starts with me, but also, we have to establish this culture, and especially right now, this team. Shrewsbury, year one, a lot of inexperience. The one thing you can control is how hard you play, right?
Yes.
And so if they know that they aren't the best team or the most talented or the most skilled or the most interconnected, you can still show up and play with passion and hard work every single time. And so I love a head coach like that because I think he is establishing the tone for what this program is going to be. And like he said, if you're not going to live up to that, I'll find a way to get you out of here. I can expedite the process for you to get out of here.
Yeah, Keon asks if he is sincere. I mean, this has been a consistent message from him from day one with everything that he has said, as it should be. The non-negotiable is your effort. And he said from day one, he had no idea what this team was going to be. And he had to cobble together a roster. He had a couple guys, he had 3 guys who were left over from the old roster. He had some freshmen, some good freshmen, but then he had to go to the transfer portal to put together the rest of his roster. So he had to cobble this thing together. And it was a listless program the last few years under Mike Bray. That's exactly what it was. It was a listless program.
It was dry. It was dead. It was unenergetic. It just felt like going through the motions.
That's right. And I mean, Jesse, you played 2 sports in college. How much did your coaches talk about effort with you?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that you have to have the mentality, and it's the hardest part. Don't get me wrong. You have to have the mentality, even when you're not playing well, things aren't going as expected. You still got to show up with that lunchbox every day to practice and to every game, and you just got to control what you can control. You have to control your effort, how hard you go, and how passionate you are about it, because if you control those things, you can bridge the gap for a lack of talent, a lack of experience, whatever it might be. And so, again, it's hard sometimes. I get that because no one likes showing up after getting stomped, or no one likes showing up after having a bad day. Right. Those are the days you got to show up and work a little bit harder.
Yeah. You can lose, but you're not going to lose going out there looking like a bunch of bums.
Well, we make fun of Vince here and there a lot, but my freshman year when we played, he was my freshman football coach. over at John Adams High School, Vince always said, we might not be the most talented, but we're going to be the most conditioned and we're going to work the hardest. And that was our mindset every single day. And I would say that after it was all said and done, we overachieved in some regards because we played better against teams because of this reason. We were going to show up and we were going to play our game, and we were going to play our game hard.
That's exactly it. And I've seen some people saying that Shrewsbury is blaming the players, not taking responsibility. I mean, he took responsibility and he didn't blame the players. He just called out the players for a lack of any effort. Like, what would you be happy if they lost by 20 points at home to the Citadel and he didn't?
And he just rolls in there as like, oh, yeah,
like,
it happens.
Night, whatever. He wants this thing. He wants defense to be a part of this, and
to me, it shows his commitment of wanting this thing to be good, to turn this thing around.
Right. It's got to start with that foundation that you're going to roll out there every night. And regardless of what the outcome turns into, they are going to give everything that they have from start to finish.
Listen, most coaches obviously coaches don't want to lose, but if you go out there and you do everything possible and you play as hard as you can and you lose, then you just lose, right?
Right. It's you still don't want to lose, but it is far more acceptable if you go out there with everything that you've got, and then that ends up being the result. But you're Notre Dame, and you just lost to a team, the Citadel, that was 6-5 going into the game. They've lost games to Presbyterian and the College of Charleston this season. And he's setting the expectation for what he wants this program to be, and lack of effort, listlessness. Again, that was something that happened too much in that program the last few years. So I think the message is simple. It's play harder, get out. That's where it's at. And I've got no problem with it. And I would hope that nobody else does as well. All right, a couple quick ones before we get out of here. This is going to be our final pre-holiday show. So I've got a women's basketball game tomorrow, and then I am hitting the road to Kansas for Christmas on Friday and into the weekend. And Jesse's going to be traveling around as well. So real quick, who you pulling for in the playoff semifinals, Bama or Michigan?
This is an easy one. I'm 100% pulling for Bama. I will always root. The only reason we think Bama, we get tired of Bama, is because they're good. I'm not going to knock being good. Just beat them. Get good. And so I don't like what Michigan has become. I don't like their head coach. I don't like, the way that they've gotten here. And I got a really good friend that's a Michigan fan, and I love rubbing it in his face. And so he's even going to the Rose Bowl, he said. And so I said, all right, well, hopefully that Rose Bowl can catch all your tears afterwards.
I'm completely with you, and I never thought that I would be, pulling for Bama, but I just cannot stomach seeing Michigan win and have a chance to play for a national championship. So it's Roll Tide all the way.
Yeah, the best part of my New Year's Eve last year was watching Michigan lose to TCU.
Yeah.
It made my night. I loved it.
That's true. Yep. Fill in the blanks. Your favorite Christmas movie is blank. Your least favorite Christmas movie is blank.
My favorite Christmas movie is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. There's no debating it, really, in my opinion.
I raised you right.
And my least favorite movie, and this is a controversial take considering where I am located right now, I am not a fan of A Christmas Story. Never have been, never will be. I think it's slow. I think it's sad. I think it's depressing. I don't like it. So
I think it's hilarious.
That's where I stand.
I don't think it's slow, sad, and depressing, but Christmas Vacation is my favorite, and it just shows that it pays off that, that I had that DVD and we've watched it so much over the years. I always kind of thought maybe you were tuning it out a little bit, but that is my favorite. Elf is the runner-up. My least favorite, I've just never been into It's a Wonderful Life. It is so old and black and white and the whole thing. That's the one that I think is slow and sad and depressing. I'd like to see him make a good remake of it, actually.
I told people this was a controversial take. Everyone in the chat is going, I'll stand on it though. I will not watch that movie unless someone else is like, yeah, I want to watch it. I'm not seeking out to watch A Christmas Story.
Yeah. So every year at this time, the Die Hard discussion comes up. Do you buy or sell it? as a Christmas movie?
I sell it. Die Hard is not a Christmas. There's nothing Christmas related. The only reason it's because they were consistently coming out around this time. You know, I think you have to have some actual Christmas in the movie to be considered a Christmas movie.
This is what I want to know. Like, there's all this, like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Lethal Weapon literally starts with a Christmas song. They come into Lethal Weapon in the open with a Christmas song. He makes a drug bust in the middle of, like a Christmas tree, like they're, where they're selling Christmas trees and all that stuff. Nobody talks about Lethal Weapon as a Christmas movie. And I think it is more a Christmas movie than Die Hard even. Yes. Thank you, Keon. Thank you, Corey. Yes, smart people in this chat. I have never figured it out. I've never figured out like why no Lethal Weapon talk. To me, it is much more a Christmas movie than Die Hard. Die Hard, not a Christmas movie, and I will die on that hill. If you could add a Christmas theme to a movie that is not a Christmas movie, what movie would it be?
I'm going to be honest with you. This was a hard one, but I think you might get a kick out of this. I think they should have done like a Christmas version of Tropic Thunder. Like they're in the middle of like Antarctica or something. You know what I mean? Like they're and they're invading.
Santa Claus blows up,
Yeah, that's what I mean. And like they're outside with like in those village scenes, and people are celebrating or singing like Christmas carols or anything like that. I think that Tropic Thunder would be a great movie to add some Christmas to.
Yes, T-Guns. I will die hard on that hill. I'm just going to go with my old standby. It is one of my favorites, Pulp Fiction. And I just feel good. Like there's so many places, like if they stroll up to the apartment in what is that? The third scene, where they go in, to get the briefcase back, like if they're in Santa Claus suits instead of black suits, or if John Travolta, when Bruce Willis kills him on the toilet, like if he's sitting there in a Santa Claus suit, or if you reversed it, if Bruce Willis like strolls in a Santa Claus suit and he shoots John Travolta while wearing like some kid, like he's leaving and some kid sees it, and then he ends up, in the car, where he runs over Marcellus Wallace and he's wearing a Santa Claus suit. I just feel like there are a million ways that Pulp Fiction, you throw a Santa Claus suit on somebody and it changes the whole tone of that movie. I think it would actually ratchet it up even another notch. So that's what I'm going to go with, Pulp Fiction. Well, I think that's going to do it, Jess. Are you off to Christmas parties tonight, or what are you guys doing?
I'm gonna go to a Christmas dinner thing with some friends. So,
all right,
I gotta get going here soon.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody being here as always, and again, we're going to be out after this. You can blame Vince if there's no show tomorrow, basically, from what I understand. So I'm going to put it squarely on him. So everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, the whole kit and caboodle.
Happy holidays.
Yes. Have a good one. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on the other side. But thanks for being here tonight. And of course, hit that like button on your way out and subscribe, rate, and review on the old podcast platforms. And we will talk to you later on IB Nation Sports Talk.